Hey y'all, my name is Austin Duncan. I'm AD Media. Today I'm inside the Thompson Warriors football facility. Today I'll be interviewing Alabama commit Trent Seaborn. Here he is. AD Media here with Alabama football quarterback commit Trent Seaborn for Thompson High School. First off, glad you're here today. Glad to be interviewing you. What was it like in Miami this weekend? What exactly is a 7-on-7?
So basically, it's like a two-hand touch football. You know, you've got 7 guys on offense for 7 guys on defense. Really, it's honestly like 5-on-7 because the quarterback and the center count as people. So you got 5 receivers, usually 4 receivers and running back versus 7 defenders. But really, the reason why I went down there to battle Miami was the competition level. There's probably the best players in the country that were down there, and I was able to play with them and play against them as well. And that was really the whole point of the trip, was to go against great competition, meet new guys, develop relationships, and hopefully I'll be going out to more 7-on-7 tournaments soon too.
When you and your parents drove down from Colorado to visit Thompson High School and the facilities, how did you feel about it?
Man, the first time I saw this new facility was actually being built, and still it wasn't actually completed yet. And I remember walking in here, and it was still concrete. There wasn't even any turf yet, but I was blown away. My parents were too. We'd never seen anything like it before. Especially living in Colorado. So to come here and now seeing it finally built, we're absolutely amazed. And the people here that built this place and the people here that are able to enjoy all these facilities, it's truly a blessing.
You won the starting quarterback job over senior Zach Sims as an 8th grader. How did that make you feel at the time?
Well, I'm really close with Zach. He's one of my very good friends. He really took me under his wing and developed me when I was young. And I wouldn't say I won the starting job over him. Unfortunately he did get hurt towards the end of the regular season, and I really hated him to see him go down. But I knew I had to step up and fill that role that that he left for me. And I was able to do a great job. I had great teammates and coaches surrounding me as well. That helped. They were the reasons why we won the state championship that year and were able to go undefeated in the playoffs. And in the end, it all worked out pretty well.
Would you say you was nervous at the time? You was just an 8th grader.
I was definitely very nervous. I'd never started a game before. I've only played sporadically throughout the regular season at the time, and so I was very nervous. When a couple weeks later, I was saying I was going to start for the rest of the playoffs. But I always prayed. I knew God was on my side, and He helped me get through it all.
How does it feel to have over 10,000 passing yards from your 8th grade year to junior year so far?
It's a blessing. That's something I wasn't really worried about throughout the season, and I didn't even come to find out happened until after the state championship game. But that's just a tribute to the coaches and my teammates around me. I've been able to play with 4 different teams now with a bunch of different receivers, linemen, running backs, and those guys are the reason why I'm able to have that accolade, and I can only give credit to those guys.
Axon recently just met Coach Mark Freeman. What's your relationship like with him, and what did he do to develop you into the football player you are now?
I really see Coach Freeman as like a second dad of mine. He's not only turned me into the quarterback that I am, but also the person that I am too. He's a man of faith, a man of God. That's something that he always aims to keep first. Football is very important to him, but he makes it known to us players that we should keep God first. And he's just so great to me and my family too. I wouldn't see myself where I am right now without him.
I've heard Thompson football practices are rough. What's the Thompson football practices like?
Man, that really depends on what time of the year you're talking about. Like right now during the off season, it's waking up at 5 in the morning. We got workouts at 6. Then we got go to school. We come back after. We'll have conditioning or agility, stuff like that. And then after that, we're throwing. That's 5 days a week, and then on weekends, we're either traveling or doing more throwing on the weekends. During the season, though, when we're outside and we're in pads, it gets intense. Coach Freeman, like I said, he's a great guy, but he's a hell of a coach too. He'll get into you. He'll start ripping you, for the slightest mistake. And that's why he's done so well at every school he's at. So yeah, I can say that practices are pretty tough.
Have led Thompson to multiple state titles. What would a final championship in your senior year mean for your legacy at the school?
I think it would be so cool, and it's not even my legacy I'm worried about. It's just our goal every year is to win a state championship, and whenever we come up short, we feel like the season was a failure. It was in my freshman year when we came up short 2 points in the state championship game. We were all disappointed. So we had to come back and get back that next year. And God was behind us throughout it all. But to get one more state championship before I leave here and the class around me leaves here, I think it would be pretty cool.
You were named Shelby County Player of the Year. What hard work did it take to get to that milestone?
Honestly, all the awards that I've been given and achievements that I've gotten, it's all been my teammates and coaches around me. They're the ones that that I think in my opinion, a great quarterback is able to thrive with a great organization around him, and that's exactly what I'm in right now. I have the best people around me, the best, like I said, best teammates, best coaches, and so they really help me get all these awards.
As a 2025 Bama Preps Offensive Player of the Year, how do you handle the expectations of being a national prospect while still trying to enjoy your final years of high school?
It's really just staying away from social media as much as I can. Obviously it's inevitable that you're going to see something on social media, but to limit myself from that is key. Keep myself away from the distractions. Focus on what's important. That's right now staying in the weight room. Studying film. Keeping up good grades, and when the season comes around, it's getting to that state championship again and winning it one more time.
What's your relationship with Alabama head coach Kalen DeBoer?
I speak to him, every few weeks. He's a great person. I think he's done an outstanding job there, especially with the shoes he's had to fill. I hope he's gonna be there for a little while longer, so I could play for him. But he's a great person, very down to earth, very easy to talk to, and obviously a coaching mastermind as well, and he knows what he's doing.
Obviously, Coach Nick Saban and Coach Kalen DeBoer. How would you say their coaching styles are different?
Well, Coach Saban was, I think he's arguably, probably, obviously the best coach of all time. So he and in the documentaries that I've watched, videos that I watched, and you could tell he's very hard on his players, and he kind of reminds me of my head coach as well, Coach Freeman. And obviously, Coach DeBoer may not be the same way in that he'll dig into you, but he knows how to coach as well. He gets fired up, and I've seen him get fired up, and that's something that a head coach needs. Is that to be able to turn that switch on, to get your players going, get your other coaches going. So, like I said, Coach DeBoer, he's doing a great job, and I hope to see him there for a few more years.
Is Tua Tagovailoa a mentor to you, and if so, how?
Not exactly Tua. It would be more Coach Nalu, his dad. It's funny, I say I have three dads. My dad, Coach Freeman, and Coach Nalu. They've always been great to me. But Coach Nalu, he's been coaching me since I was about 6 years old, and throughout the years, I've always been training him. He's always been helping me with my footwork, my throwing, my mechanics. But also, as a person as well. That's why my parents make it important that the coaches they surround me with are great people as well, and that's somebody that Coach Nalu is to me. He's really my mentor, and he's helped me throughout this whole process.
When Nick Saban retired, did that surprise you, and how did Coach Nick Saban's retirement affect your decision at the time?
I remember being totally distraught when that happened. I think the whole world kind of went on pause when that happened, and it was funny. I was actually just down there when I found out the news, and I kind of stopped in my tracks, and I was like, dang, what just happened? And but it was bound to happen, sooner than later. All I was worried about was who the next person was going to be, and I think they chose a great coach, for that hire with Coach DeBoer. But obviously at the time, it did, my mind did change on who I wanted to go to or who I wanted to play for. But I was also a freshman at the time too, so I still had years to figure out that decision.
I know you have a relationship with God, but how does He help with your mental state and on and off the field?
He gives me complete peace and comfort when I need it, and he is, as the Bible says, God's time is always perfect, and I truly believe in that. Everything that's happened so far in my life, it's just crazy how all things line up, and things turn out to be perfectly in accord. He opened the door to help my family move out here to Alabaster and Thompson. He's the reason why I'm where I am right now. Before every game, I always pray to him, asking for an injury-free game, and through God's grace, he's been able to give me that. And, knock on wood, it doesn't ever happen. And I always ask him to give me peace and comfort before every game, and he always gives me that. It helps me to play well every game as well.
Why do you wear number 12?
That's a funny story. So I actually, always wanted to wear number 13 because of Tua and because of Kurt Warner as well. But when I got here to Thompson, I asked Coach Freeman, I was like, I kind of want to wear 13, and but he wanted me to wear 12 because that's a number that he reserves for special players here at Thompson. Before me, Talia wore it, and Talia is a very, very good friend of mine, and I guess Coach Freeman, holds that number special to his heart. I love Coach Freeman very much, so I want to do something to please him. So I stuck with that number, and I hope to keep that number from now on too.
If there was one wide receiver that you would want to throw to, who would it be? It could be high school, college, NFL, or retired.
Oh dang, that's a crazy question. I think I'll go for all three categories. You said high school, college, and retired.
NFL too.
Oh, NFL and retired. High school, it would be any one of my receivers. I have great chemistry with all of them. College, I'd probably say Ryan Williams or Jeremiah Smith. Those guys are absolutely electric. NFL, probably Puka Nacua. I'm a Rams fan, and he's been pretty outstanding this season, so probably him. And then retired, I gotta go with Jerry Rice. He's a legend.
What's the story behind your vehicle that you currently have right now?
So I drive a 2006 Toyota Tundra. It's gray. It's got the camper shell on it, but I'll go through the backstory on that. So it was originally my grandpa's truck, and when he bought it years and years ago. And when I was a kid, I remember being very, very obsessed with it. I always loved riding his truck. Always going on road trips. He drove it so much. Currently it has 280,000 miles on it, but it still works a charm. Anyways, excuse me, my grandparents, they're from Southern California, and after my grandpa passed away, my grandma, she decided to give the truck to my dad to keep until when I was able to drive. So my grandpa passed away when I was probably 5th or 6th grade, and so when my grandma gave my dad my truck, we were originally living in Colorado at the time, and we flew out to California and got my grandpa's truck, and we drove it from California all the way to Colorado, and then when we moved here to Alabaster, we drove the same truck from Colorado all the way here, and so when I was able to start driving, I wanted to drive my grandpa's truck, in honor of him. And people tell me, why do you drive with a camper shell on? Well, that's how my grandpa drove it. Mm-hmm. And they always ask me, why don't I take it off? I just drive with it on, in honor of him. It really hasn't changed much. It's got the same wheels, same windows, and obviously the iconic camper shell on it too.
What made you choose the University of Alabama, knowing you had all these other bonds and relationships you have with all these other coaches, such as Dan Lanning, Shane Beamer, Mario Cristobal, Dabo Sweeney, Mike Norvell, and other coaches?
Throughout this whole recruiting process, it's really hard because you develop these relationships, with the coaches you mentioned and a ton of other coaches as well. You get to see tons of colleges, tons of organizations, all best of the best in the country. And but at the end of the day, when it's time, you have to come to a final decision. You only get to choose one, and so it kind of hurts to have to tell all these other coaches no. And I'm sorry, I'll be going somewhere else. Especially when you've developed these relationships with these people and truly genuine relationships too, not just through football, but just through life as well. But at the end of the day, I did choose Alabama because it's always been my dream to play at Alabama. Ever since Tua got there, I've been a diehard fan, and so to be able to finally have that opportunity to come here and play, especially being only 50 minutes away, I feel like God has opened up all the doors to make it perfect and make it all seem to fit and sing. And to be able to play for another great coaching staff as well. Obviously, it's not Coach Saban, but I think Coach DeBoer, as I said, has done an outstanding job, and all the coaches underneath him as well. I'm really excited, get up there and play for those guys.
What exactly were you looking for in the recruitment process?
So there was a lot. There's a lot of check boxes. it was, the biggest thing was, am I going to go somewhere where I'll be developed as a quarterback and as a person as well, kind of like how I am here. Am I going to go to obviously a great coaching staff that develops quarterbacks, but with great people around that'll help me, thrive in my faith and in me as a person as well. I want to go to a culture and a locker room that their main desire is win a national championship, play for each other, not playing for money, not playing for individual awards, but to play as a team sport was meant to be played, and to go win a national championship. And I think that's what Alabama is. They've got great players around them, great people, great coaches, and a great environment as well.
You just mentioned money. Like, why are you so loyal to the University of Alabama? And you also turned down a $1 million NIL deal. Why?
My parents, they raised me to, always stay true to your roots. The reason why I was, offered, these deals was because of this school that we're in right now and the coaches and players here. So it wouldn't make sense, to, once I get all these, all this attention and stuff to leave these guys behind. They're the reasons why I have all this attention. So I think it's better to stay true to your people. Life isn't always about money. Money comes and goes. At the end of the day, it's always who was there in the beginning, and this is what this place is.
How are you quarterback one at Thompson High School and doing band at the same time?
So I'm not in the marching band. I'm in what's called wind ensemble, which is like concert band. We play in the like an auditorium. We do concerts and stuff. And I've actually been playing the saxophone since about 3rd or 4th grade, and I really love playing it. It's something I do in my free time. When life isn't always football, and it's something I use as like a getaway from football sometimes. And I really enjoy playing really advanced pieces of music. Really challenges my brain. Really makes me think, and it's cool to be able to have another talent outside of football as well.
Last question. I want to be on ESPN College Game Day. What's your advice to me?
Gosh, I don't really know much about that, but I'd say keep doing what you're doing. This was a great interview. I think you did a great job. I think connections help a lot too. Just doing more interviews with people. That's how you branch out, make new connections, and hopefully one day you'll get to that dream.
Thank you, Trent.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'm AD Media. Thanks for watching.